Art is something out of the ordinary. To me, art is culture, and art embraces different perspectives. It also expands your mind, makes you look at things differently. The museum has always been a uniter, and I see the museum creating bridges between people. And I think that's the purpose of a museum of art, is to bring the community together for dialogue and to experience new things.
At the Albany Museum of Art, our true treasures have always been our visitors, our friends, our supporters, stakeholders, our staff and board. But in particular, it's those people who have stayed steadfast through the years. It is difficult to look back at a point when the McCormack family, the Willson family, and Rosemary Hamburger were not involved substantially in the goings-on at the Albany Museum of Art. They serve as role models for all of us. We can all be supportive of arts and culture in any way we can, and they simply have done it with grace and with generosity through the years, and we are deeply, deeply grateful and deeply touched to have them as our friends. The McCormack family's been involved with the museum for decades, and we still are proud to have our McCormack Gallery upstairs.
When it comes to the McCormacks, I do feel like I'm an expert. In fact, I probably know too much. The whole family is just, their philanthropy's in their DNA. It's just what they do. It's what they've always done. They were real important to Albany, and they did so much for the city.
I know that the McCormacks came to Albany in the 20s to start a candy factory. And the factory has been very successful, and it lasted for many years and was an internationally known company. And so they were very successful, and they were very civic-minded and have been involved a lot with all the arts in Albany for 3 generations.
Bob McCormack, as he got the business rolling, he felt like it was important to give back to the community and to support your community. And then his daughters, they took it and they supported the arts. The art museum, it will certainly be in Anna Louise's, that was their baby.
Anna Louise and B. McCormack were on the community concert board when I was quite young, and I've worked with them, and I knew them as friends too.
These 2 women, they put together a huge campaign that got the museum rolling over 50 years ago when it was over on Slappy Drive.
I was born and raised in Albany. I was 3rd generation, and I was fortunate enough to have predecessors, like my aunts, like Jane Willson, the generation ahead of me, and even those before them, that recognized, in a small community, things can get pretty stagnant if there's not some sort of outreach that sort of brings things in that educates and enlightens the population, whether it be art, whether it be music, whether it be live theater.
And so as Greg and Mary Helen and Julie, as they grew up, I don't think it was a conscious decision. I think they had seen it all of their lives, and they just knew it. Not only was it an obligation and an expectation, it is just how you function in a responsible way for the betterment of your community. And I don't know that they could function any other way.
I was raised from a young age to experience and partake of these things and then support them all because they were important to have the community to be a richer environment.
I do remember with regard to the art auction, this big fundraiser they had every year, they were always there the full day of the event, the days ahead of the event. They were out there soliciting items that were sold at the auction. They acted as auctioneers. They were runners. They worked the phone booths. Just real involved. The entire family was real involved.
My two aunts, Eloise Haley, Jane Willson, Steve Hinton, Bronwyn Hinton, they were amazing, and that it was their passion, and when there wasn't a passion in Albany. So when I came in, there was a museum already there. There was a functioning board. They were on their way. They wanted a new children's space, and they wanted a new exhibit space. And I had had a lot of experience in Albany running fundraisers and bringing in capital campaign money. And so we had a successful campaign, raised the money, and I think set the museum onto its next level of service and next level of support.
The contributions of the McCormack family have been many, and in particular, it's through their giving that families and all visitors have had a very positive experience here in our facility.
The family, the entire family, has done so much, and the family deserves every accolade that they receive. They deserve it.
The Willson family has been a presence here at the Albany Museum of Art for decades. We have the Harry and Jane Willson Auditorium.
We have a guest book that goes back to the early 50s, and it has the Willsons in it. So we've known the Willsons just forever. They have 4 children, we have 5, and we all grew up knowing each other. We've known each other. My sister's married to the oldest Willson son. They've always been very involved with the Museum of Art. My parents were also very involved with it, and they worked together for years. They just knew each other very well.
My parents, especially maybe my mother, I think she felt very strongly about Albany and Georgia. She was not from here, but she took ownership in not only the museum, but lots of different charities in Albany. You could ask anybody associated with the Boys and Girls Club how instrumental and how important they were to that organization. Salvation Army, my father served 32 years as the chairman of Phoebe board. So I think just being members of the community and wanting to make Albany a better place to live, and a museum being part of that, they were instrumental, I think, in making Albany a more desirable, enjoyable place to live so that it could attract talent, attract business, attract doctors, professionals to the town. These things help.
They've brought art, they've certainly contributed a lot of money, and they've been very hands-on involved with the museum since it started.
No, Jane Willson was certainly, especially once Eloise Haley passed on, Jane was very instrumental, and Jane was a huge benefactor for the museum, especially what I call the new museum. And Jane was, just a driving force behind everything that the museum wanted to accomplish. And I think the main room there for parties and lectures and all is the Willson Auditorium, and rightly so. She and Harry were both very much involved, as well as Larry, their son.
I know that my mom contributed a lot of time to a lot of organizations, and the museum was absolutely one of them for sure. My mom was the director for a few years before she started working out at Sunnyland Farm, so she was pretty instrumental.
Remember when I came back to Albany, 1978, my parents were real involved. I guess I grew up with the arts and always had an interest in it. So when we came back, my wife's from Texas. She didn't know anybody in town, and I suggested that perhaps she might apply for the position as a way for her to, meet people, meet Albany.
I took a job as the director when it was the Banks Haley Gallery then. I mean, it was a fully operating museum then. Everything was volunteer, of course. I believe I was the only paid staff.
And that sort of started our involvement with the museum.
I think my parents are very community-driven. And they still are, and they kind of raised us to be that way as well. We grew up going to the art museum exhibits, going to the symphony.
I grew up going to museums, so when I moved to Albany, it was kind of a natural thing to become involved in the museums here. I guess I was most proud of the fact that we were able to access exhibits that we would not have otherwise been able to afford if we had to float the means ourselves. We had very good relations with other museums in the area, so we were very lucky in that regard. And we did have some very generous sponsors who helped us pay for the ones that we had to pay for. Museums are better funded now than they were back then. It was all volunteers. People were there because they wanted to be there. So it was a totally different atmosphere. I mean, even the shop. We had people that acted as docents, did the school groups, guided the school groups through. We had people who ran the shops. We had a group of folks. Most of these were ladies, because back then women were not employed outside the home as much as they are now. So we had a group of ladies that would come in and hang the shows.
Felt a sense of community and need to serve, and have, as I say, put in my dues doing that, and happy to say my son and his wife are taking up that mantle now and being very active in the community.
And Larry and Beverly, Alex and Stacy have been steadfast friends throughout this process, and we look forward to holding on to those friends as we move downtown in the next few years.
The museum wouldn't be what it is today if it hadn't been for the Willsons.
And what to say about Rosemary Hamburger? She's a powerhouse as a friend, as a supporter, as a board member, longtime stakeholder in the Albany Museum of Art. She continues on a daily basis to champion everything we do here.
I've been on the board many times in the past, and I'm currently on the board. Well, the first time I was a board member was back in the 80s when this museum opened. And right now it's been about 3 years.
Rosemary is the sister I've never had. Rosemary is my dearest friend. And all of my 80 years, it has been a treasure. We've grown up together. We've been together through thick and thin, happy and sad, mischievous and travels. And Rosemary she's what you call a real lady. But Rosemary's very talented, she's very creative, and she was lured, as I was, to the art museum. We love the art, we love the artists, we love putting on the parties for that. Rosemary has done the most exquisite flower arrangements for fundraisers for the museum since she's been on the board. She's really an asset to the museum and to the board.
Well, when this building was first opened, I was the volunteer coordinator, and we had docents who would walk around and describe the different things about the picture, and we had a lot of school children that came through then.
As a board member, she has been on the cutting edge of trying to expand the museum and move to downtown Albany.
A board does have a voice in what goes on at the museum. It's is an advertisement for the museum, and you want to get people that you know involved.
People like Rosemary have really made the art museum the quality place it is. I'd like to tell the world, so we have it, the story of how Rosemary was able to give a great donation to the Albany Museum of Art. She was married to a man named Carl Hamburger. His sister was named Frances. Frances and Carl were sent by their parents from Germany before Hitler closed the door for the Jews. They came to America, to the Statue of Liberty. They came poor Jewish people with no homeland. Miss Frances then met Mr. Bunzel, and they sold rags. And guess what happened to the rags? They became the filters for cigarettes. Now, can you imagine a penny for every filter for a cigarette that has gone on for all these years? They made lots of money, and they had been raised in a cultured home life in Germany, and they loved the art. I loved to go with Rosemary to see Frances, and it was her gift to her beloved Rosemary that came to the Albany Museum of Art to make us better. And I'm thrilled to this day, and always will be, that Rosemary could do that, and this precious lady gave of her monies. And what a strange way for the art museum to have received a large donation. And I think we should be very grateful for that. To think that people care like Rosemary and put her energy working there, being a volunteer, and also able to have this large amount of money donated so we can grow and be better. It's just it's a blessing. It's a joy. to think that Rosemary has given her time, her energy, her love, her personality, as well as this money from the Bunsel, is just, that's what folks are. That's the kind of person you want in your community.
Well, I've always thought being a member of the museum and having the cultural aspect of the museum in Albany was good for Albany.
We simply couldn't do what we do here without Miss Rosemary. She is a breath of fresh air every time we see her. But make no mistake, Miss Rosemary is the real deal when it comes to supporting arts and culture, and she does that tangibly every single day. So what's the future of the AMA? Well, we are moving downtown in the next few years. We are expanding physically, we are expanding programmatically, and we are expanding in relevance to being relevant to hopefully every single person in this region and to visitors who come here. The AMA is only as good as our visitors feel we are good. So we can't wait to continue growing within our means, but also growing dynamically, boldly, to really be that clubhouse for all.
We want to go downtown because it will help the museum have more space, because it is going to be so much bigger, and we will be able to offer better quality things and a big variety of things. I want to see this Belt building open and the galleries filled and see what it does for downtown Albany.
We have been able to grow, and here we are trying to grow, and in the near future we will have a whole new facility. We've come a long way since we were just hoping to be in the black every year.
You know, the McCormacks and the Wilsons, and just there's a lot of them that historically have just been able to, and with sacrifice, of course, step up and get the art museum and these other organizations over that hump.
All three of those families have been here for generations and are very successful families who felt like it was really important to invest in the arts community, that they felt like it was important for Albany to have these arts organizations and have access to the arts.
They were the ones that were making the phone calls, calling the people, saying, had the connections to say, look, this is important, it's important to the future, it's important to Albany, we need you to help us. So they were ambassadors for the museum, and they were the ones that were out there kind of beating the bushes and getting other people to come on board and come along.
I think one of the things that makes Albany a great place to live is that there are a lot of people who are willing to give their time and their efforts and their resources if asked. And so I think that, that is something that the museum does well, other institutions do well. And I think there's a lot of actual people who are happy to do that as well. And I think that the continued success of the museum will be based on people in the next generation coming up and doing the exact same thing.
The Albany Museum of Art has meant so much to our family. Alex and I moved back about 6 years ago, and when we moved back, we didn't know that many people our age, and we immediately connected with the museum, and connected with their educational programming for children, as well as their events for adults. And we met so many friends and so many connections just by being involved with the museum. And so I just see it as this wonderful cultural hub for the community, for everyone, no matter what age, no matter what kind of job you have, what kind of background you have. The museum is just so diverse in its offerings and really just helps the community stay connected. And I think they're doing a really good job, and the challenge is to continue to do that.
It's good to see the museum doing the outreach type of things that will get more people involved, because the more you expand the different types of people you're going to get in, and that's what it takes to keep an organization growing.
Well, I think you have to educate the younger people and get them interested, or it won't go on. But we have a lot of programs for young people, even little tiny tots. And I think if they grow up with that, they will follow it in their lives.
I think if you don't catch children at a young age and pique their interest, it's going to be harder to do the older they get. I've seen several kids mature and be quite successful in art, and they never would have had that had there not been an Albany Museum of Art. And I think that's really important. And the other side of that is even if you don't come up with a passion for doing art, I think it becomes a passion to experiencing art. And if you travel, you want to go see other art representation. So I think art can be really vital to a community, especially in bringing people together.
It takes those key people to be supportive, and those people change. And that's a good thing, because it means that the institution changes as well and moves along as well and keeps going and keeps growing. There seemed to be no lack of people involved in it, and that's the main thing, is that it continues. It doesn't matter whether I'm there or not, as long as it continues.
I grew up in Albany. I'm really grateful for the access to the arts that I've had growing up here. And I think that I can say, unequivocally that the people who made the effort to make it so that we had such a strong arts community in this town made huge contributions to my life and to the life of my children, the life of my brothers and sisters, and other people in this town.
I can say with complete certainty that we would not have a museum, especially the caliber we have in Albany, if it were not for these people.
I'm very grateful for the contributions that these families have made to Albany. I think they've made a huge difference in the quality of life here.